Hello everyone and welcome back to another average review. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the McFarlane DC Multiverse Dick Grayson Nightwing from Batman Knightfall. Now the box is nothing too special, just your standard, logos, names, and window right here. On the side, we see it's Nightwing from Batman Knightfall, and on the back, we see some art of Nightwing from the 90s. Now, this is probably my favorite Nightwing costume. It's just so cool looking. But, I mean, if you look at this art on the back, you can see Nightwing's got long hair, a belt that's similar to his logo, and also a logo that doesn't have a line going through the middle like that. None of which are true for the figure. He's got a tied-up ponytail, a logo with a line going through the middle, and a Batman-style utility belt. Now, I know I say I don't care about packaging and then proceed to go on a 2-minute long rant about packaging, but, there was, 100% art from the 90s where Nightwing looked like this that would fit on the box, right? I don't know, I'm just not sure why they chose that art of Nightwing from the 90s in particular, since it doesn't really match the figure 100%. Ah, well, you don't come here to see a review of packaging, you come here to see a review of a figure. So, let's bust him out of his prison. Alright, getting this Nightwing out of the package, and I want to start off with the positives, what I like about this figure, since I don't like being overly negative, but there's a pretty big amount of problems with this guy. Starting out with the positives, though, I gotta say, this 90s Nightwing design is probably my favorite design for Nightwing. It combines some of my favorite aspects from the disco New Teen Titans Nightwing suit, and of course, the pretty standard black and blue Nightwing suit. Granted, that's because it was the literal midpoint between the two, but still, I really like it and think it actually looks really cool. I also do generally like the body mold used, which is the Blue Beetle / Booster Gold body mold, since those are the two figures it was first used on. It's a really good looking blank superhero body. Well, for the most part blank, we'll get to that later. And also, the new sculpted parts do look really good. In particular, the head sculpt for Nightwing. This is probably my favorite head sculpt for a McFarlane Dick Grayson, since, it's just got all his personality, especially with that smirk. And the hair is pretty dang cool, especially since they got the 90s Knightfall ponytail. There's also the belt he's got, which, nothing special, just a pretty standard utility belt, but hey, it looks nice, it's well sculpted, and pretty well painted. And hey, speaking of the paint job, for the most part, it looks good. I'll get into the parts where it isn't so good, but overall, the colors, the darker blue, the cyan, and the yellow, do look really nice, since, they're pulled straight from the brightly colored, yet also dark 90s comics. Alright, time to get into the bad. Let's start from top to bottom. Alright, so near the top, you can obviously see the yellow from the shoulders to the chest is just cut off by the rotator cuffs, which, that's a pretty major problem. Since this suit is also sometimes referred to as the glider suit, and this yellow part just sort of went over and sort of was almost like Spider-Man's, web wings, since they'd go all the way around and sort of kind of form an armpit parachute. Was it very practical looking, or did it make sense? Not really, but it looked cool. Even if it wasn't that, and it was just the standard Nightwing logo, you'd still want it to connect from, the shoulder to the chest and not just have a gap here. Also, a bit of a minor nitpick, but you can see right on the belt piece, and also, I guess the diaper piece, as people call it, since that's sort of what it looks like sometimes, you can see there's a bit of blue between the chest and the belt. It's not an actual criticism, but, like, you could just, like, cut it away, and, like, that would probably be better, because it would just be a straight transition from the belt to the lower legs of the figure. Is it an actual complaint? No, but still, I want to mention it. But finally, another issue with the sculpting, the boots. The Blue Beetle body has sculpted in boot lines, and this figure does not remove them, so they just painted over them, and it looks, I mean, pretty dang bad. I mean, like, especially, like, right here. There's just, like, a pretty obvious bump, and same goes for on the blue. You can see there's a big bump in the middle of the blue, and it just really breaks up the sculpting. That's the biggest part. That's the biggest problem with this figure. The sculpting is broken up despite it being a mostly blank body. Well, I shouldn't say sculpting. The sculpting is what breaks up the paint. Now, does the figure itself look terrible? No, but it's definitely a lot of wasted potential, since we definitely aren't seeing this suit again in the DC Multiverse line. So it's a bit disappointing that it's got so many problems. But hey, moving past the aesthetics, let's see the function on this Nightwing figure, as in, obviously, the articulation. Starting with the head, and it's on the standard DC Multiverse dumbbell joint, it gets a pretty far amount of up, which, hey, the ponytail isn't getting in the way, which is nice. Doesn't really get any down, though. Does get tilt side to side and all the way around. The rotator cuffs may break up the paint, but they do get a pretty good amount of, well, rotation. The arms also spin around, and in combination with the rotator cuffs, they can lift above 90 degrees. There's, of course, bicep swivel, which rotates all the way around, even if mine is a little bit stuck. Nightwing's got double jointed elbows with a perfect bend, which is very nice. And also the McFarlane-style wrist articulation, which can hinge in pretty much any direction. Now, at the torso, he's got the standard McFarlane diaphragm joint and ball-jointed waist. It, unfortunately, doesn't get far in terms of hunch forward at all, which is pretty disappointing for an acrobatic character like Nightwing, but the arch back is very good. He also gets a pretty good amount of tilt side to side and twist. Now, at the hips, he's got the standard McFarlane-style hips that can kick forward a bit under 90 degrees, split a pretty much perfect amount, and get a actually pretty useful amount of tilt in the legs, or twist, which, I mean, is pretty abnormal for a McFarlane figure. Now, he's got the standard McFarlane double-jointed knees with a pretty dang good bend, along with ankles that can spin around, hinge back and forward a very fair amount, pivot side to side, and, of course, the McFarlane toe articulation. So, overall, pretty good articulation, but it is kinda held back by that lacking hunch forward, which is, well, that's kind of a trend with a lot of McFarlane figures, actually. Moving on to the figure comparisons, we of course gotta start out with the standard male and female comparisons, the 6-inch Hasbro Marvel Legends Renew Your Vows Spider-Man, and Spinneret. Moving on to some DC comparisons, we of course have Dick's mentor, Bruce Wayne Batman. This is specifically the original Three Jokers Batman, which is a pretty new acquisition, so spoiler alert, you might see a review on that guy sometime soon, and the blue and gray repaint of that Batman from the Amazon exclusive Bat Family 5-pack. But since this is a Knightfall Nightwing, it only makes sense to bring out Knightfall Batman. He is taller than Nightwing, but I do understand why most people would prefer something like Three Jokers Batman, which is a lot larger, since, yeah, I do agree, that does scale better with this Nightwing. But it does work a lot better for Dick Grayson as Batman from Batman Reborn, since, well, they're the same guy. Speaking of other figures of Dick Grayson, here's the Bat Family 5-pack Nightwing head with the alternate Jason Todd head. And hey, to give a bit of credit to this figure, and further discredit this one, this guy actually has the rotator cuffs painted to connect the shoulder logo, well, the shoulder part of the logo, to the regular chest logo. To dock those same points for this guy, he's got even worse torso articulation and really gangly limbs. Granted, they did make a new modern black and blue Nightwing on the Superman John Kent body mold, but I'd still kinda wanna see one on this Blue Beetle body mold, since I just kinda prefer the size and sculpt of this one. If you're wondering about a head swap, unfortunately, the head is just too small and also sits too low on this body. So it's just making the torso, arms, and legs look more even disproportionate with each other than they already did. For some other Bat Family members, though, we have the Bat Family 3-pack Barbara Gordon Batgirl, and the Mattel DC Multiverse DC Rebirth Red Robin Tim Drake. Since it's the closest Tim Drake figure I have to the one featured in the 90s. But for the best and most important Bat Family member, we have Alfred Pennyworth from Mattel. Quickly moving through some of Batman's most important villains from this era, we of course have his arch nemesis, the Joker, from the McFarlane Digital line. The DC classic Riddler, who shares not only the same body mold as Nightwing, but also the same sculpted boot issue. Of course, in the 90s, Mr. Freeze was reinvented by Batman the Animated Series, so here's McFarlane's repaint of their regular Rebirth Mr. Freeze to match that revolutionary version. Although she's less of a villain nowadays, she's still really important to the Batman mythos, so without further ado, here's the DC Essentials Knightfall Catwoman. But for the most important villain of this era of Batman comics, we of course have Bane. Specifically, the DC Direct Knightfall version. I definitely do want to try tracking down a bigger and also more articulated Bane. Probably the one from that recent Knightfall Batman and Bane 2-pack. I gotta say though, that one's pretty pricey. But hey, as is tradition, here's the McFarlane DC Multiverse Knightfall Nightwing with Hit Monkey and Goliath. Now, I gotta admit, this figure has its pretty fair share of shortcomings. But one area where I don't think it comes up short at all is in terms of the accessories. Of course, he's got the tried and true pair of fists. He's also got a pair of accessory holding hands, which is a bit odd, since he doesn't come with any accessories he can hold, and this version of Nightwing, to my knowledge, didn't even have his now famous dual batons. But hey, I would prefer to have accessory holding hands rather than not have them. He also comes with a singular open, hey, give me a high five hand, and another hand holding this little disc right here. So hey, this figure has its fair share of misses, but the accessories are a surefire hit. Alright, getting the price of this guy out of the way quickly. Right now on eBay, I'm seeing him going for between $20 to $30 in box. as usual, I'd recommend trying to hit, the lower region, like 20, 25. Which, hey, he's going for about 25 on Amazon right now, so if you just want to head there to pick this guy up, then, yeah. That wouldn't be too unwise of a decision if you actually like how this figure looks or you like what you're seeing. But me, I didn't really pay that much. I actually got this guy at a comic convention down in New Jersey for about $15 in box, which is a pretty dang good deal. But that doesn't really negate the problems I have with this figure. The primary issue is due to very specific areas of the paint. The gaps between the shoulders and the chest on the logo, and of course, the boot sculpting really interfering with the painting on the boots, which is pretty egregious. There's also the issue of a super acrobatic character not being able to hunch forward. But that doesn't mean everything about this figure is bad. The sculpt, for the most part, is actually really good and fits Nightwing. The actual color scheme is really nicely done. The articulation, for the most part, disregarding the hunch forward, is pretty dang solid, along with the accessories and new pieces, being the head and the belt, looking really good. So, overall, taking everything into the count, I'm gonna give the McFarlane DC Multiverse Knightfall Nightwing a 7 out of 10. He's got his positives, and I don't dislike this figure, but I feel like a 7, a pretty average rating, is pretty warranted because of the issues with this figure. To anyone still watching, first of all, thank you for sitting through this entire video. Secondly, sorry for the really sparse uploads as of late. As of late, I've kind of been struggling with, being motivated to actually make these videos since there's a lot of work I have to do for school, and it's kind of stressing me out. But hey, I'm pushing through it, and you guys watching these videos really does mean a lot to me. So, yeah, thank you for watching, and until next time, have a great day, and bye-bye.